Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us on the Text for Bernie team. The work that we do on this team is so important. We send out millions of text messages to voters all over the country to get them more engaged in our grassroots movement to defeat Trump and transform America. This is the largest, most expansive peer-to-peer texting program in the history of U.S. politics, and we are so excited that you're going to be part of this. As a volunteer texter, you'll be texting with people to connect them with local campaign events, to ask them to make small dollar donations, and to encourage them to volunteer with the campaign and join our political revolution. In this training, we are going to cover several areas, including how to text with Spoke, our texting team norms, and your next steps for getting started. The first thing we're going to cover is our revolutionary texting tool, Spoke. Spoke gives us the power to talk to thousands of Bernie supporters all around the country in record time. To get to Spoke, you need to go through Slack. Once you complete this online training and pass the quiz, you'll be invited to join the New Texters Slack channel. Once you're in the New Texters channel, you'll hover over the channel header to click the link for Spoke. You'll see this login page first, and you'll click on Login and Get Started. Click Continue twice to sync up your Slack and Spoke. While Spoke is automatically connected to our Slack workspace, they are completely separate and distinct programs. So remember, Slack is our campaign official communications tool, and Spoke is where we are going to send out texts to voters. Once everything is successfully synchronized, you'll see this screen indicating you're logged in and ready to request your first batch of texts. Typically speaking, we text 7 days a week from 9 a.m. Eastern Time to 9 p.m. Pacific, excluding all federal holidays. We do occasionally have some lighter texting days, so there might be times when texts are not available to request. To see if we're texting when you're available to help out, you can scan through the New Texters channel. Our volunteer support will post regular updates on the day's texting assignments and activities, and sometimes texting is only turned off momentarily while we're loading up another assignment. The volunteer support team will post when an assignment is up, and you can refresh to request a batch. Assignments are created by campaign event schedules, as well as important upcoming campaign strategy requirements. So you'll be texting for prioritized campaigns, reaching voters around the nation. After you've requested an assignment, you'll wait a few minutes for the system to assign texts to you. You'll get an announcement from Bernie TextBot in Slack when your assignment is ready. Once you get that announcement, you can refresh your Spoke to start texting. Texting assignments vary from campaign to campaign. Typically, when we're sending out initial texts, the assignment sizes will be rather large. An average texting assignment is around 500 to 750 texts, but a huge assignment is around 1,000 texts. When you get more comfortable, you can usually send around 1,000 initial texts in about 10 minutes. It's important to note that the default assignment size is the maximum assignment for that campaign, but you can absolutely request a smaller size, especially when you're first getting started. Next, we're going to dig into the mechanics of texting in Spoke, including how to navigate in your workflow, sending and replying to messages, managing tags, and your shift flow. This is a snapshot of your workflow page. It will show you all of the texts on current campaigns you have left to send. We text for all different kinds of reasons here at Bernie 2020. You can see that this campaign was to let people know about a rally happening in Denver. Other texting assignments could range from asking people to attend a debate watch party, to letting people know about a voter registration deadline, to texting the voter file to gauge support for Bernie in the primary. After you've started texting, your workflow will update to include any outstanding initial messages, displayed here with a green notification bubble. Any replies that have come in that are waiting your response are displayed with an orange notification bubble. Once you've sent responses to replies, they'll be moved over to your past messages workflow with a yellow notification bubble. Then if you've skipped any messages, meaning the conversation has ended, you'll mark them as read and move them from your send replies over to your skipped messages workflow. And then occasionally you might be texting near a time zone cutoff. When the clock strikes 9 p.m. in that time zone, all of your messages will move over to a gray send later. You didn't do anything wrong, don't stress out. This just simply means it's hit 9 o'clock in Colorado and we can't text past the 9 p.m. cutoff time. So these texts will reopen when texting opens again in that time zone at 9 a.m. the next morning. Typically speaking, you will want to focus your energy on the green and orange notification bubbles. These are the ones that need attention. The yellow notification bubbles just mean you've already handled that message. As you get more comfortable, you're likely to have multiple texting campaigns open at once. When that happens, you'll have a banner with the campaign name, and each campaign will have its own set of buttons listed in your spoke screen. So you may have to scroll down in order to see messages that require responses. Initial messages have carefully crafted, pre-written texts to send to voters created by our Bernie 2020 staffers. You'll want to channel your energy into the green send button at the bottom of your screen. I personally have found that it's easiest for me to text from a computer because instead of clicking send 1,000 times, I can just tap my enter key 1,000 times to send those initial messages. You will want to send all of your initial texts before working on any replies that might come in. Also, super important to note, legally, each text must be individually sent by a volunteer. We cannot use scripts, macros, or programs to help us hit send. So again, get ready to mash that enter button. After you've sent your initial messages, you'll land back at your spoke workflow. Remember, we're texting humans, not robots. So if you have sent all of your messages and nobody has replied, this entire campaign will disappear from your spoke screen momentarily. As soon as you get a reply, it'll pop back up, but you may have to refresh. Once you're ready to send your replies, you'll click on Send Replies. Reply screens look similar to this. We use the response from our texters to log data about what they said under a current question dropdown. So in this screenshot, we've already clicked on current question, and it will display a menu of survey responses like this. There are multiple survey responses. In this example, the textee said yes, they'll come. So we'll choose yes, they will attend the event. When you're working on replies, there might be a few similar options in that current question dropdown. You can click on a survey response to see what message will pre-populate, then click again to change to another option. Toggling between those survey options to see what they say is really helpful. Typically speaking, there's additional information like the event location or the RSVP link in the yes or maybe responses. If you need some additional details to answer a question from a textee, you can absolutely toggle to one of those survey dropdowns, copy and paste the RSVP link into another web browser, and then see what additional information you can find there. Typically, the end time as well as location information will be provided there. On certain campaigns, we will be texting the voter file rather than just our supporter file to determine their level of support for Bernie in the primary. We have a voter ID scale graphic available in our texting team FAQ document that will help you determine between the different support levels. Generally speaking, when we're texting for these campaigns, our initial text will end with, "Are you in for Bernie?" If they respond with yes, or "Feel the burn," or "He's got my vote," you'll mark them as a 1 and we'll ask them to join us on our volunteer teams. If they respond with no, or "Not in the primary," or "I support other candidate," you'll mark them as a 5 and ask who they plan to support if they haven't already told you. If you have questions or you're not sure how to ID someone, please ask in the New Texters channel. After selecting a survey option, a text response will auto-populate in the message field with more information or next steps. This will happen for any option you choose in that current question dropdown. All you have to do is hit send. Regardless of how a textee replies, we want to log the data with an appropriate survey response. This will allow us to follow up with the textee both in the immediate and long-term future. If you've marked a question wrong, or if the textee has changed their mind, please let a volunteer support know in Slack, and we'll help you go back and change their response. Sometimes we'll send a message to a wrong number. When that happens, you'll select the wrong number option. This will exclude that contact from future texting campaigns. Sometimes, though, you'll hear from the textee that it's a wrong number, but they still support Bernie. In that example, we will choose wrong number supports Bernie, and we will ask them to update their information so we can contact them with their appropriate name in the future. If someone says stop, like in this example, or otherwise clearly and explicitly asks to no longer receive texts, we must immediately opt them out. Some examples of common opt-out messages are stop, remove me, don't text me, take me off your list, or unsubscribe. Please note that opt-outs are permanent, so we do not want to opt out unless they explicitly ask us to be removed. Once you click on the opt-out button, a message will automatically appear at the bottom of your screen. You'll click send to opt out that number. Sometimes the textee answers with a question rather than a direct answer to our initial question. When that happens, the first thing to do is not panic and check the canned responses down at the bottom of your spoke screen. So these canned responses will have suggested replies that we've prepared for common questions regarding that specific texting campaign. For each texting campaign, we'll have canned responses for anyone who sends a video or picture and anyone who asks how we got their information. In this example, we were texting asking someone to attend a barnstorm, and they replied, maybe, what's a barnstorm? That's a very common question on this texting campaign. So clicking on canned responses will show the what is a barnstorm. You'll be able to click on that and then send the pre-populated message. While in most cases, you'll be able to just select the appropriate survey response and hit send. Sometimes you'll want to modify the script that automatically populates. One example here is when someone shares with you a personal hardship, like feeling ill or becoming injured. In those cases, you should modify the default script to empathize with the person you're texting with before relaying any other relevant information that would be appropriate to send. For example, in this one, we texted someone asking if they could attend an event. They replied back with, sorry, I can't go. I'm sick with the flu. Rather than sounding like a robot, we're going to empathize with them and say, I'm so sorry to hear you're not feeling well. Thank you for letting me know. When you're feeling better, you can head over to the map to see what else is happening near you. If a voter sends a message that does not require a response, like this one, you can simply select the skip reply. In this instance, they said, no, they can't help, but go Bernie. And we said, I understand. Enjoy the rest of your day. They said, thanks, you too. Thanks for all your hard work. We don't have to thank them again. We can just mark this as the conversation has ended with the skip reply button. This is going to move this message from your send replies workflow over to your skipped messages workflow. If, however, you had a question on this message and you needed some help from volunteer support and you wanted to come back to it later, these toggle buttons, left and right, will flip through your messages and let you come back to it later. Next, we're going to talk about managing tags. Tags are how we collect data that we cannot capture through survey responses. There are 3 common ways to use tags, including messages sent in another language, logging a voter's second choice candidate, and escalating a conversation to campaign staff. To tag a textee, you'll click Manage Tags at the bottom of your screen. A new pop-up window is going to appear, and you'll be able to enter the tag you'd like to mark that textee with. In this example, they replied back in Spanish instead of in English, so we will mark them as a Spanish speaker by clicking under Apply Tags and typing the word Spanish. The list is going to filter as you type, so feel free to start typing in Spanish and choose the tag from the list. And then click Save. If you're not sure what language it is, please post a screenshot in our language help channel, and we'll get one of our volunteer translators to help us identify it. You can also notify volunteer support that you're looking for language help, and we'll make sure to get you an answer in the channel. For Spanish texts only, if you're not a Spanish speaker and you want to make sure the textee gets a response right away, you can also add in the Reassign to Spanish Speaker tag and choose Save and Move On without a message. After you refresh your spoke screen, this will remove the message from your message workflow and pass it along to our Spanish texting program. Please note this feature is only for Spanish text at this time, and it's also important to note here that refreshing your spoke screen regularly is recommended to keep your workflow running smoothly. On certain texting campaigns, where we are texting the voter file and not just Bernie supporters, we'll be collecting information about voter support for other candidates, including their second choice candidate. So these are the Are You In for Bernie questions. They replied back, sorry, I'm going with Biden. We're going to mark that as a 5. They will not support Bernie, and we'll choose Biden from the current question dropdown. Then the message you can't see back here asked, do you mind sharing who your second choice candidate is? They replied back with Mayor Pete. So we will click on Manage Tags. Under the Apply Tags, you'll click inside and start typing in the last name of the candidate they've identified as their second choice. In this example, we'd start typing in Buttigieg. Once you select the tag, don't forget to hit Save and then send the pre-populated response. The final way we use tags is when we need to escalate a conversation to a campaign staffer. This option should only be used in very unique circumstances. For example, threats of violence, from specific threats to more indirect or general ones, like someone who says they plan to bring a firearm to an event. Dead naming. This is when a textee identifies as transgender or non-binary, but our data still contains their old dead name. These extremely sensitive conversations we want our campaign staff to handle. Any urgent requests, like someone who's having trouble finding an event location or a volunteer who can't find the meeting place for a rally. Finally, any demands to speak to a staffer or supervisor so that they can handle those difficult or challenging dynamics from those conversations. Please note, we do request you post a screenshot of the texting conversation in the new texters channel and get the approval from volunteer support before escalating. This will allow our volunteer support team to notify staff of any urgent matters promptly. Once you have been given the OK from volunteer support, you'll click on the Manage Tags button. Click on the orange Escalate Conversations button. Carefully read and answer the prompts that come up to escalate the conversation. Again, in general, you should only escalate as the final recourse to an extremely sensitive or urgent conversation. You should not escalate just because you don't know how to respond or because the textee is being rude or difficult. When in doubt, first check the texting team FAQ. If there's not an adequate answer there, ask for help in Slack in the new texters channel, where our volunteer support are always ready and waiting to assist you. A quick note on hardware. It is possible to send texts through your web browser on any smartphone, tablet, or computer, but a majority of texters report a preference for sending via desktop or laptop computer due to increased accuracy and efficiency. And I wanted to share a quick pro tip. Whenever you sit down to start texting with us, the first thing you should do is open up a few key resources. Spoke, where you're going to send your texts and manage your workflow. Slack, where you're going to get assignment details and be able to ask and get answers to your questions. Again, we do really recommend you download the full Slack application rather than using the browser version. It's going to be a little bit faster when our channels are super busy. And the texting team FAQ, which is located at the top of the new texters channel for reference. This is the main resource document that is packed with valuable information on policy positions, campaign events, and answers to common questions you'll encounter while texting. In the same vein, we do recommend having open the issues page of Bernie's website so that you can use that as well. Okay, now that you know how to operate the technology that powers our texting team, it is time to learn about the norms and best practices that our texting team relies upon to be effective representatives of Bernie's campaign. We'll start with a few do's and don'ts. A good general guideline is to be like Bernie, kind, warm, and respectful, no matter what. If you don't know something, please ask. You're about to join a wonderful community on Slack where people are incredibly happy to give you the support you need along your texting journey. Don't forget to also let volunteer support know if you need to stop texting so we can reassign your replies. Some things to avoid. Never post screenshots of texting conversations or Slack exchanges online or in non-texting related Slack channels. Never abandon your texts without letting volunteer support know. Never send unapproved links. Approved links must come from the FAQ, Bernie's website, or one of Bernie's social media accounts. Any links that cannot be found in one of these three places are not okay to send via text unless volunteer support or staff have indicated otherwise. Never engage in negative debate. Research shows that most of the time, people leave a debate feeling more entrenched in their original position, not more open or responsive to a different point of view. Plus, debates or arguments can quickly spiral out of our control, undermining our ability to earn the textee's support and placing the campaign in a vulnerable position. We do understand that at times there can be a fine line between combative debate and constructive discussion. If a textee disagrees with Bernie on his platform, we should aim to respectfully share facts without ever getting nasty, negative, or defensive. Remember, as a representative of the campaign, we're counting on you to be like Bernie, kind, warm, and respectful, no matter what. We do have some helpful strategies for walking the line between discussion and debate. We're going to dig into these just a little bit more in depth. A core strategy for keeping a discussion constructive is to empathize with the person you're talking to, relating to them as another real human being. Some examples of that might be saying things like, I can understand why you'd care so much about, or it totally makes sense that you're concerned about that. Another useful approach is to inquire about their reasoning, especially if it's not clear what they mean. So you might say something like, I'd love to understand more about why, or may I ask why you think? Acknowledging or thanking someone for sharing their perspective is an easy way to demonstrate respect in a conversation. You might say something like, I appreciate you letting me know where you're coming from. If someone is pulling the discussion into a more abstract or personal direction, a helpful strategy can be to pivot to a concrete policy position that Bernie holds that you suspect may resonate with the textee. For example, you may say something like, "It sounds like the cost of healthcare is a real concern for you." You might be interested in Bernie's platform on Medicare for All, which would guarantee quality healthcare to everyone while eliminating premiums, deductibles, and copays. You can read about it here, then provide the link to Bernie's issues page on Medicare for All. We want to reiterate here that whenever you're sharing links about policy, you should only share campaign-approved links, meaning links found in the FAQ, links to the issues page of Bernie's website, or to a post on one of his social media accounts. Do not share news articles, videos, or any other links unless they are clearly and explicitly approved by the campaign. 2 last strategies for avoiding negative debate and fostering positive discussion. It is really important not to mirror negativity or allow yourself to react defensively to a textee. You should never attack a textee, no matter how rude or disrespectful their behavior may be, and you should never personally attack another candidate in the race. We're going to keep it about the issues and why we believe Bernie is the strongest candidate. One way to think about it would be to ask yourself the question, would Bernie retweet this message? Finally, don't drag out a lost cause or tolerate abuse. There will be tens or hundreds of thousands of people we need to text each and every day. Don't waste your time on conversations that are clearly not productive. And please don't feed the trolls. Trolls are textees who will engage you in conversation, but who have no intention of interacting with you in good faith. Don't take the bait. And this is very important. We read every new text conversation on the back end of Spoke. Any negative debating, mean-spirited comments, sarcastic remarks, or conversing in bad faith will result in your suspension and removal from the texting program. As we touched on earlier, anytime a textee says stop, remove me, opt out, unsubscribe, take me off your list, or anything that clearly indicates they no longer wish to receive text messages, we must immediately opt them out. This is to make sure we're honoring people's wishes and not wasting our time contacting people who do not want to be contacted. On the other hand, you should never opt out simply because the conversation comes to an end, because the textee says no to our question, because we have the wrong number, or the textee has moved. You should also not opt out simply because the textee is rude or inappropriate, and you should never offer to opt people out unless they explicitly ask for it themselves. Okay, so you know the difference between negative debate and constructive discussion. You know when to opt out and when not to opt out. But what do you do when you hit a question you don't know how to answer? You can follow these 3 steps. First, check those canned responses in Spoke. If you don't see an answer there, check the texting team FAQ. If you're still struggling to find that right reply, ask a volunteer support in the New Texters Slack channel. Please do not make up stuff or guess when you're unsure about something. It is critical that we give voters and supporters accurate, reliable information, which means having our facts straight. So once you've checked the canned responses and the FAQ, please don't hesitate to ask for help in New Texters. That is what we are here for. If it's a policy question you're having trouble answering, again, there are 3 steps to cover. First, look in the texting team FAQ, which does have extensive information on Bernie's policy positions. Second, if your answer isn't in the FAQ, or if you want to augment it, you can go to the issues page of Bernie's website, where you can read and pull language from in-depth policy positions. You can also refer the textee directly to a specific issues page. Third, if the issue or question is particularly specific or unique, you can go ahead and ask them to email info@berniesanders.com, which is designed to receive and respond to more detailed and difficult policy questions. If you get a question about a particularly controversial topic, or get the sense that the textee is trying to bait you into an antagonistic conversation or debate, please don't go there. Instead, you can offer them this stock response, directing them to info@berniesanders.com. You can find this exact language when you're texting in the texting team FAQ by pressing Control or Command F on your keyboard and searching for the phrase info@ symbol, and then toggling through the search results. All right, we did it! Thank you so much for getting through that content with us. Please remember that our staff and Sweeper volunteers are monitoring all conversations and that our volunteer support are always available to answer any of your questions. You can absolutely take the quiz at the usnot.me/text quiz URL displayed here on the slide or directly underneath this video on the webpage. Again, thank you so much for joining us on the texting team. You're helping to build an unprecedented grassroots movement to take on the billionaire class and guarantee a dignified life for all people. The work we do on this team will play a huge role in getting Bernie in the White House. We're so grateful for your commitment to the campaign and for your interest in the texting team. This is a people-powered campaign, and we could not do it without you. We look forward to seeing you over in Slack, and happy texting.